Welcome to the Nephology podcast. I'm your host, Joe David, and I'm the founder and CEO of Nephos Group. On this podcast, we talk to founders, innovators, disruptors, and entrepreneurs from all across the globe who are building in Web3, technology, and finance. And if that's something that you're interested in, please hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss out on any of the latest episodes. Now on to the next episode. Welcome everyone to the latest episode of the Nephology podcast. I'm delighted to welcome back James from Mindprint and Particle Execution, which is not how I introduced you last time. You might also be the first person I've welcomed back.
Oh, really?
On the podcast. So I don't know whether that means honored. I'm getting desperate or you've got something valuable to offer. So hopefully it's the latter, mate.
I'm sure it is.
How are you?
Yeah, really good, mate. Very, very good.
Good to see you. We've also, I say developed. We've obviously known each other for a lot longer now as well, and we've done a lot more together in lots of different ways. So this is normally I'm very prepared, but I've got a kind of list of questions and all those sort of things. But for this one, we're freeballing it a little bit. I've got a few notes, but we know each other
just
well
go with
enough
the flow.
To go with it. So, like for those that didn't watch the first episode, know nothing about you, let's give them a quick intro into who you are and what brings you here today.
Yeah, sure. So, as you know, I'm James. I am an entrepreneur. I've been in the UAE now for 3 years. When I initially moved and when we did the last podcast, I was working on two businesses. One was the YP Club, where I was the COO, and the other was a AI recruitment startup called Startly. At the end of last year, I stopped both of those businesses and started focusing on the new one, which is Particle Execution. Particle Execution now has been running for 9 months. We're an AI automation consultancy and agency. We go into businesses, we understand what's going on, identify areas where they can use AI and automation. We'll then design, develop, deploy, and optimize solutions that can increase productivity, reduce costs, increase data visibility, or save time, whatever the objective is. And through doing that, at the start of this year, we discovered a big opportunity for a AI workforce product, which we've just launched as of yesterday. That's called Mindprint.
Congrats.
And thank you very much. And the idea is we're really just trying to make the easiest way for small non-technical teams to use AI as a team. So it looks a bit like Microsoft Slack, looks a bit like Teams, but you've got AI really entrenched in it. It's got a memory that compounds over time. And the more you use it, the better it gets at remembering how you work, individual memory, and really we're just trying to make AI entrenched in how our business works there. So those are the two things we're focusing on. Now we've got a team of 13 full-time people.
Amazing.
And it's a good space to be in for sure. So
Sure. And thanks for that. I guess quite often on this, we're talking about one buzzword, which is crypto. But in this context, we're talking about another buzzword, which is AI. So I'm keen to delve into some of that. But I want to go a little bit further back, not quite as far back, because we don't need to go back over old ground. But I don't want to go far back as YP, which we were very involved together in. And then even on Startly, we were a user of that product. And but let's go back to November, December last year. And you basically said, look, this is it now. I need to do this. I'm an entrepreneurial person. You've always been an entrepreneurial person. But in order to do this, I'm going to have to change something in my life. And that was...
Yeah, I think that's it. And it was a weird one. And, Cam, who you know very well as well, is the CEO of YP Club, and he's a very, very good friend of mine. I still see him and talk to him a lot. But it was weird because after we did the last podcast, August, September last year, we scaled the YP Club from 400 to 800 members. And it was really exciting for like 6 weeks. And then about mid-September, I was like, why am I feeling really flat? And I did a bit of introspection, and I realized it was because I knew deep down I wanted to do something where, Cam had started YP Club 6 months before he left me. He was the founder. Yes, I was a business partner, but I really had to do something where, as I say, I was leading it, and I was founding it right from the beginning. And I had this opportunity of I could stay there and spend the next few years of my life working there, scaling it out, exit, and have more money than most, but I would still be unfulfilled, and I knew I couldn't do that. And then I had that whole, you know me, I listened to a lot of Hormozy, but that Alex Hormozy thing of your first business isn't going to be your last. What's business really about? It's about building a skill set. Throughout those 2 years where I was building YP Club and Startly, I'd understood what it takes to bootstrap a tech startup an AI tech startup to revenue. Well, okay, it was amazing, but it was to revenue. And scaled YP Club relatively fast. And it's a very difficult business, that. And so I just kind of backed myself. I knew I wanted to be within the AI space. I saw a lot of opportunity within the custom AI within businesses. And so that is why I kind of said that I was going to leave YP Club. But I think what you're referring to, specifically is that period where I transitioned between the two, which it was an intense month. I think November of last year and December and January, because I had an unprofitable tech startup. I was getting a quite meager salary from YP Club because it was in itself a startup. I was using some of that to pay the salaries of the two guys I had working on the tech startup. And so when I decided to leave, I had no income, no savings, and but I just had a belief that it was going to work. So my partner Romy had also just set up an Airbnb management company, and I knew that we couldn't afford to live in Dubai, but I did want to keep Dubai as a base. So we made a deal with our landlord, and we said, look, why don't we rent this? Romy will manage it on Airbnb. She's got a property just the same, the other side of Marina. It's doing like X amount more than you are. Why don't you let us manage it? We'll guarantee you the minimum base amount, and then we will split the profit between us. So we managed to turn our biggest, cost into an asset, which was good. And then me and Romy sat down as a couple. We were like, we just got to go for it, So we were like, we've got to move somewhere cheaper because we couldn't afford to live in Dubai. So we went initially to Vietnam for a month, and then went to Bali for another month. Much cheaper places than Dubai. Just absolutely grinded it out. It was quite a stressful, 3-month period. Came back here towards the end of February when it started making a bit more money, and it's gone well.
And I'm sure people have said this to you, but I genuinely commend you for because you didn't, you were in a position, like you say, you didn't have a shit ton of money just in your back pocket that you could just pull out, and you couldn't just call on X amount of money from family, or or maybe you could but you didn't want to, whatever, right? So it was very much a case of like, I believe that what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave, because even that wasn't a job, although it was like a YP, it was a job, but it wasn't. Do you know what I mean?
It was a
like,
partner of the business.
Yeah. So like to step away from that and go, I'm backing myself, like, is an amazing thing, and something that most people wouldn't even dream of. So I think it's an inspiration to other people to go, do you know what, if you follow your dream and you back yourself, and like you said, not only that, you also did a deal with the landlord. Like everything you did was around an entrepreneurial kind of deal making. And so how long was it? 3 months you were out for?
2.5, 3 months.
So. And then you're back and living the dream in Dubai again.
Yeah, exactly.
Still paying expensive rent.
Yeah, exactly. So
that big opportunity money making thing you did with the landlord is now become your biggest liability again, probably.
Well, but we've still got that deal. So I was away for 2 months over summer, and we were renting it out.
Right, okay, great.
It turned out to be really, really good.
Yeah,
and
nice.
He's that guy is actually our landlord there. He's given 2 other properties to Romy, my partner.
Amazing. So there you go.
Yeah,
business development opportunities
very,
all around.
Good.
So
that was what it is. Just on that point around like confidence, like it is just. People. I often say that I used to drive to college and think about business ideas, and I used to Google, the Wikipedias of like Richard Branson or Alan Sugar or Steve Jobs and all of these people, and try and reverse engineer what they were doing, if I should go to university or not, if I should just be doing something like that, because I knew that all of my life I wanted to be. I just wanted to be an entrepreneur and have businesses, and like that's just what I've known for quite a while. And doesn't have to be the same for everyone. But I think one thing that I've said to people is, when you come to Dubai and you meet people, whether it's in YP Club or just through networking events, who are like successful entrepreneurs and are living a life that is so detached from the normality of what you're told in school and by your parents, most of them, if they were, have 9 to 5s, just seeing people be very successful and achieving great things, you realize they're not superhumans. No. They're just people who have, got a mindset that says, all right, I can do this. And then once you have the confidence, what is it? It's just putting into action a plan.
Yeah.
So in my case, I was like, right, got to get rid of every single cost, quite literally, because I had no income.
Because I can't afford to.
So I got rid of every single cost. And then I was like, what's the minimum I need to live in somewhere very cheap? It was probably $1,000 a month. So I just basically got our first client for particle execution which was $1,000 a month, basically. So, and then from there, I got that, and I knew it was just, volume of sales and marketing effort until I get another one.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I've got a couple of points on that. Like the first is, I said in another podcast, I don't believe you're born an entrepreneur, right? However, you're the type of person that I think probably was, just as I know you, like you are probably that person that is like, that was born an entrepreneur. And I think that's just the way you are and the way you're wired. But I think that's right. But why not just go back to the UK and live with parents? Or like, surely that would have been, like, there must have been a conscious decision at that point to go, because that's what a lot of, I know most would then be in the country of their parents or whatever, but a lot of startup founders, that's what they would do. They go and live in their parents' bedroom. And
I think it was like, so a couple of things. Like in my life, I always think you should always go, forward and not back. And I didn't just want to go back to like living with my parents the first year after university as I saw it. Fine if people do want to, but that was just how I saw it. As well, like, I'd had a life with Romy, we were living together. It's just a completely different dynamic. So I was like, how can I uphold what's really important to me, which is, still having a life and a living space with Romy, but focus on these businesses and, not lose that. Yeah, sure, we could have gone back to the UK, but it just felt like the wrong step. So, yeah. Yeah,
no, and I think also Bali, as much as I've not been there myself, but was it Bali you were at?
Vietnam for the first month.
Yeah.
Bali for the second, basically.
Oh, yeah, that was it. It's also a bit of an entrepreneurial place, right? It is. There's a lot of kind of founders and it's different to the UK.
Yeah.
So going back to the UK would have kind of been going back to the reason that.
Although having said that, I'm somewhat ironically after running YP Club, but I don't really network very much. Unless there's like significant ROI and I'm going to somewhere because I know I'm going to meet XYZ people in a rapid succession that could get leads, or I could provide value to them, or whatever it is. So there are a lot of entrepreneurs in Bali, but I didn't really meet any.
Okay, interesting.
Because I was like, unless, what was I focused on right now? Getting enough money to move back to Dubai. And I was like, I was so stressed for that 2 months, but I was like, am I really going to get that main first milestone by going out and chilling with a load of entrepreneurs, especially when I'd run one of the largest, membership clubs for entrepreneurs. Sometimes I'm like, maybe I don't need more. I don't really need a bigger network. I just need to, nail it. And I think some people do that. They mistake networking with, progression, because it feels like something you should be doing.
I think that's a really interesting point. Yeah, they mistake a lot of conversations to be getting something done, when actually, like you say, getting your head down and doing it, nothing beats that. And so why, I guess the obvious question, why AI? What brought you into that world?
Well, I think it was the first time firstly, I've always wanted to be a tech entrepreneur. Something about it, whether it was the Silicon Valley dream or whatever, something about, the idea that if you can get it right, you can make a massive company that has so much impact, that can scale stupidly fast. That just really excited me. Like when I was, in university, I was reading books about the lean startup and other Hooked and other tech entrepreneurship books, and so I've always been interested in tech. Now, the first time I ever used ChatGPT, I was just like, this is mental. I was like, this is insane. I was like, I need to be in this. I need to be doing something that involves this. And that's what drew me to Startly. I then kind of realized Startly, for whatever reason, was probably the wrong opportunity, but I knew that I still kind of wanted to be within that space because it's biggest market, biggest growing market in the history of markets.
Although I'd argue crypto is also one of the biggest markets of growth, but
one of them.
We'll have that debate another time. So obviously you did Startly, or you had Startly, and there was an element of AI within Startly, but I would say it's more of, from Startly's perspective, it felt more like what other people are doing, which is I've got a product. Let me plug a bit of AI into that to give you something that makes life a bit easier, right? Yep. But that doesn't really solve a problem, right? So I'm not saying Startly didn't solve a problem. What I'm saying is, from a long-term perspective, it was more AI plugged in at that point rather than being AI from the ground up.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, it was a core. It was a core, technology that enabled it to work.
Yeah.
Because of the matching algorithm.
Yeah.
But arguably,
when you look at it now, what you do now, I guess, is the point I'm trying to make. Your AI for you now is like is everything, and if it's
why I was because I was thinking quite deeply about it, because it's a difficult one, like in terms of if you're making a agentic AI product, like there's so many levels to the tech stack. You've still got the underlying LLM. Like now, even with Mindprint, it's not like we've made our own, DeepSeek or we haven't put in like $10 million plus of funding to make an LLM. So you're always going to have the LLM there as the thing that's generating the output on the other side. And then on top of that, you've got the database or memory agent orchestration, memory layers, the observability tools of what's going on in the AI, and then the actual user interface that people use. So Startly, in that sense, I would say, was a more simple AI product, because it didn't, it was just really like ChatGPT with an API was plugged into a user interface.
Yes.
In that sense, yes. But I would also argue that, it doesn't need to be too complex. I think a lot of the winners, and I'm sure we'll come on to this a bit more with the Mindprint, but... Well, I'll go on to it then. But with the Mindprint, I mean, this is the kind of core hypothesis that we have now, right? Is I think when you're building AI startups, there's like loads of different routes you can go down. But I think there's this one, dichotomy of you could pick sales or marketing and try and become the very best thing in sales or marketing. Like you could become like a Gong or a I don't know, Jasper AI. I don't actually know anyone that used that like as a marketing tool. Or I think there's what we're seeing, and what the hypothesis for Mindprint is that there's a huge segment of the market that is actually just about making AI as simple as possible. Because that part of my growth strategy is I post these lead magnets on LinkedIn. August, I got 7,000 leads off of 2 different posts. I cleared 2 weeks in my calendar, had, literally 70 hours a week on LinkedIn. It's boring as hell, but it was very valuable. And what I was getting from that was, a lot of sales meetings booked in, a lot of people saying that they're interested in trialing Mindprint. But as well as that, just like incredible amounts of insight into the market. And I think someone like me or you, who are definitely early adopters of tech, whilst not being, we don't deal with APIs or code ourselves, but we're definitely early adopters of tech.
I'll start coding on ChatGPT.
Yeah, you did say that as well. So, like we are probably like very as technical as it gets without being technical.
Correct.
That's what I said to Zach yesterday. And I think because of that, people like me and you, and especially me with, I run an AI agency, of course I'm going to know about it, but the disparity between what AI can do and what people know it can do and use it for is enormous. Yeah. It's absolutely enormous.
But do you think, though, that is because a lot of the bigger firms, let's say, are not, I don't know how to phrase it, but like, take a Gemini, for example, right? What Gemini does on the face of it is... It's a very simple chat tool. They've embedded it in some of their products, so a Google Sheet or something, and you can ask it. But they make it simple, so therefore people think it's simple. Whereas actually, there's so much more to it. But people don't talk about it because then the people that don't understand it get confused. They switch. Do you see what I mean? So like, you kind of have to dumb it down to get people to be interested. But then by dumbing it down, you don't do the service that it's due, if that makes sense, because it is such a fascinating, huge product. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I do think a lot of it is, though, to do with the just the prompting thing.
Yeah.
Most people don't want to know prompting. Like the post that went really viral on LinkedIn last month, 2 months ago, 6,500 comments. It was just as ChatGPT 5 launched, and I made a prompt vault of 100 prompts that they could copy and paste with like variables that they could enter their info in, such as like, you are an expert in LinkedIn posts, creating a LinkedIn post on X subject, and the idea is they can copy and paste it and then put it into their prompts. And to me, I was almost a bit embarrassed about posting that, because I was like, that's so simple. But people were replying to me and going, "Oh, it's amazing! I feel like AI is finally working for me." And I was like, I was so surprised. And as stupid as it sounds, Gemini and ChatGPT, all of the LLMs have got the user interface that is quite simple. It's still, for some reason, too complex for, I think, average people, not like, clued up business people, just average people to actually use to get really high quality outputs, because they expect to put in one small sentence and get an incredibly good output. It returns a crap output and they get frustrated. And that's why a lot of people think it's really bad. And a lot of people, can't be asked to. What I often say to people is, talk to ChatGPT like you're talking to a new junior employee, right? You wouldn't just be like, "Hey, make a social media post."
Yeah.
You would say,
"Hey,
this is our context." You say, "This is our SOP. You follow these steps. You make sure it's got this brand guidelines. You make sure the hooks are 1 or 3 sentences long with a space in the middle, and it's primed on virality and giving value, whatever it is." You give them all of this context and a very clear step-by-step instruction, tell them how you want it to look. And most people, it seems crazy to me because, again, me and you are using it for everything day in, day out, and we know this, but most people, or a significant proportion of the market, let's say, I always scared of saying most people, significant proportion of the market just haven't really worked that out. And they want to.
So that's interesting, really, isn't it? Because I'm saying, they're simplifying it so people think it's simple, but actually they're maybe even not simplifying it enough.
Yeah, 100%.
Maybe it needs to come that. And as you said, I'm the wrong. And we've talked about stuff before where you've looked at launching something particular and you said, would you use it? And I'm like, well, I'm not the right target market for you on that. Not because what you're doing is wrong, but because for me, I'm not that person, if that makes sense. I'm further forward, or I'm not using it, or whatever. So I'm the type of person that will play with stuff, like you said, and get answers. So one thing that you've talked about before is, and you mentioned it with Mindprint, is the memory, right? Which I'm assuming is partly where the name
Mindprint comes from,
has come in. Now, and I'm asking you this question so you can tell me, and therefore the audience and whatnot. So if I go in ChatGPT, for example, I can create my own GPT. And I can tell it about me, my business. So I've done one for marketing. I can tell it about me, my business, my brand guidelines, the types of things I want it to post about. I want it to remember that I like things written like this, or blah, 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 blah. And then I click on my GPT and I write, make me a LinkedIn post, and it'll go in, it'll get all that information that I've told it, and it'll give me an answer, right? And if I then say to it, okay, next time remember not to do this, like don't put a comma in that sentence, put a dash, or the other way around, right? It remembers that in the main, right?
In that chat.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then what are you doing that's different to that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the first thing to say is this memory and how you use memory is going to be really, as I see it, what is shaping the next decade of AI. Because as humans, memory is absolutely integral to every single thing we do. Without memory, whether it's subconscious or conscious, we can't really do anything.
No.
We've got 3 types of memory, right? We've got, and I'm sure someone who knows a lot more than me specifically on the human physiology side might say more, but there's semantic, which is rules and facts about the world, such as Paris is the capital of France, for example, or Joe is wearing white trainers. Semantic memory. There's also procedural memory. And procedural memory is memory that you don't think about consciously, maybe, but for example, you remember how to ride a bike if you can.
So it'd be awkward if I couldn't.
You remember how to ride a bike. You don't consciously think about it. You just grab it and go on. So that's procedural. And
driving a car's a little bit like that.
Yeah,
as well.
Exactly. Didn't you have a driver? But then you've got episodic, and episodic is this. You remember. Just here's an example. You had a birthday party last year. You remember what it was like.
Yeah.
The general context and the awareness of what that was, and basically, if you can try and mimic those 3 aspects of memory and put them into AI, those 3 aspects of memory are really what give us all the context to be enabled to do everything we do. And the difficulty becomes in giving that to AI, right? So you've got semantic memory could be, if you tie it to your CRM, it might have data on a company's deal size or when their invoice is due. Procedural could be, a workflow map.
Yeah.
But episodic is quite hard, because episodic is, all of this integral context to human individual continuation. But it's just so much facts. It's just observation and existence.
And I imagine it's very different between different people.
Yeah, and it's very different.
Whereas procedural isn't, for example, or what have you, because the procedure is a procedure. But how I perceived that birthday party a year ago versus how you perceived it could have been a different thing.
And this is why I think really when people come down to saying, oh, the AI, it's not good enough to... I'll give you my example, okay, what we do is in our service business is AI consulting and automation consulting. It is essentially 50%, doing stuff and 50%, managing change and people and understanding little different nuances. And that part, I really feel like you can have all the facts and the figures about procedure, which is, the semantic and the procedural, but the idea of understanding all these little nuances, little bits of politics within a business where people are maybe a bit annoyed with each other, all of that stuff you have to hold in and take into account. And it's very, very, very hard to get an AI that's going to be able to understand all of that and be able to make as enough context-rich decisions as a human can. And that's why, AI is always going to be, I think for the next decade, it's one of the biggest challenges. And number two, it's giving that to the AI when it's making its decisions. So, kind of going back to, and it's a very long-winded answer for how is it different, but one of the main challenges that with AI agents at the moment is this thing called context engineering. And it's like, even if you have all of the context and all these, say, different types of memory, how do you give an AI agent enough context at different points in its multi-step workflow that it's going to be able to do the next step well enough with understanding how the previous step was done? Because context is a huge thing. Like me and you in this room right now, how many bits of context are we soaking up? Significant amounts. So, that kind of idea of how is the memory actually captured and stored for AI? And then how do you give that memory, which is essentially context, to AI agents is going to be incredibly, incredibly hard. And so Mindprint, to bring it back to it, we're basically trying to create, we're playing around with it. It's an R&D element to it, right? So what really the focus is on right now is we've created a memory that by our standards is relatively basic. I mean, it's got, the standard of what ChatGPT has, but it's got a better database that can record more bits of information. So just say you can have 1,000 documents in there that are vectorized is the word and put in a vector database. And a vector database is able to store bits of data or chunks of data. If it's like, 1,000-word essay, each word might be a different chunk or something like that. Store it in the vector database. When the AI is prompted about something, it checks the vector database, finds a chunk that might be relevant and uses that to give a context-rich output. So initially, Mindprint's got that, but there's a lot of different types of memory and it's constantly evolving. We've been speaking to some startups in Silicon Valley and other places about like how their memory is evolving, because we really believe as a team, if we can nail this memory and people are trusting us with their company's data, then we've got an incredibly powerful business long term. So, for example, we're research and developing, if you want to say that, with a graph databases as well right now. Graph database is able to understand the relationship, the time-stamped relationship between different bits of data. So on the vector database side, for example, if there's two vectors in there, one says Joe's favorite color is red, one says Joe's favorite color is blue, that there's no relationship between them. They're just stored as coordinates in a database and might have even weight as values. Right. But with a graph database, you can set it up such as, say, it knows that you actually said in June that your favorite color was blue, but your favorite color was red is now said in July, understands the relationship between those bits of data, which one takes priority. And when prompted, not just able to search as like a flat plane what's relevant, but able to understand the time-stamped relationship between those data. Yeah. But it's a very hard bit of engineering. But the point is that if you can crack it right, and you can get memory correct, you're able to get incredibly context-rich, high-quality outputs from AI, and you're able to make AI agents operate a lot better because they have the relevant context. So that's what we're really trying to, a core thing that we're trying to do in Mindprint is make that memory good. But from the user's perspective, again, our users and small non-technical teams, they shouldn't have to worry about the memory. They should just know that it's making the AI better. Yeah.
A little bit like, I don't worry about my own memory.
Yeah.
I expect my brain to know things or to, to remember things.
You don't go to ride a bike and feel like, oh God, I'm gonna. No, I might forget it today.
Is the brain gonna work? Well, I do think that some mornings, to be fair. But no, I totally get it. It's got to just happen, right? Yeah. It's got to just work. Otherwise, like you say, you'll get a founder, say me, who will embrace it and want to do it, but then the rest of the team won't take it on because they won't understand it, and then the product won't be as good because you haven't got full buy-in, etc., etc. So makes sense. So I want to talk about agents specifically because we've had some detailed conversations about it, and I've got not opinion, that's not the right word, but a thought process on it. And a lot of people talk about agents. A lot of people. ChatGPT now has agents, and all these other. I don't know if
anyone's aligned on what the definition is.
Well, so that was what I was going to ask you: is what really is an agent? What does an agent actually do? But you don't know because no one's got a definition.
Well, I read the Google white paper in January. Essentially, an agent is like let's start with what's an automation. An automation is where you automate a bit of logic between two systems. Or even the same system. So, really simple example: lead comes in from your web. You've got one. We've worked on one with you.
Yeah.
A lead comes in from your website, and it triggers an email from one of your reps to say book a call.
Yeah.
Right. That's an automation.
Yeah.
Something happens here that causes an input, causes an output.
And there's no real contextual piece to that. It is literally if this happens, do this.
Do this, exactly. Then you've got an AI automation. Now, an AI automation typically works if you've got a workflow that has a small amount of variance, not huge, but a small amount of variance, because if it's not too varied and it's not too complex or critical what that variation is, then AI is able to deal with it. So I'll give you an example, same one again. You've got a lead that comes in, but this time, and in fact, I think we made this for you as well as a MVP. I can't remember if it's exactly in your flow right now, but the lead comes in off the website, and they've when filling it in, they've left a additional notes bit for context around why they want to get in contact. Now, an AI automation would be able to read that, tailor the email to say, "Oh, we understand you're looking at filing your tax returns in the UK because you hold a load of Dogecoin or whatever, and you're looking to make sure you're compliant." It would put that in the email.
Sounds like a regular inquiry.
Yeah, exactly. So there you've got an automated flow, little bit of variance, which is just the reason they're getting in contact, and AI handles that.
Yep.
So you've got automation, AI automation. AI agents typically involve a larger task, which an agent breaks things down into subtasks, and it does sequentially, which also means that they need to have access to some kind of knowledge base or memory. Because if you're doing a multi-step task or workflow, you need to be able to have context as to if what's getting done is the right thing and why is it having that done. Whereas in the AI automation example, no knowledge base was needed there because it was a relatively simple thing that was happening. But you might need really more detailed logics and knowledge and memory as to what's actually going on that the AI agent can then use. Also, it's typically able to interact with external tools. So for example, it might be able to interact with LinkedIn autonomously and do something based on a decision that was made of one of the subtasks. And then usually, or more often than not, you want some kind of evaluation piece in there. So you want the AI to have some kind of rules, and there's some stuff that we've been doing with clients to say, this was the output of the AI. Our own AI system that's part of this agent has evaluated that as good for XYZ reason, and give a confidence scoring to it, which then someone could come in and review.
Yep.
So in a nutshell, more complex, multi-step workflows that involve subtasks, usually a knowledge base or a memory, still accessing external tools, not just kept to ChatGPT like ChatGPT is, but then also, you're going to want that evaluation and observability to what's actually happening going on. So...
Okay, so moving that forward then onto let's it could be any kind of it could be a marketing assistant agent, it could be an advisor agent that you talk to and it gives you advice or information based on contextual. We've talked about the personal assistant kind of. The issue that I've always had with these things is they do a little bit, they don't do enough. Yeah. So then they come back to I have an agent, for example, that I can message it on Telegram, so I use Telegram most of the time, and it will book in a meeting. But what it won't help me do is, for example, I can't think of an example now, but like if say I've got to move that meeting and overlay it with another meeting, or I want to like it can't do everything that I need it to do. It can't run my life for me, right? So then I go, well, if I can't do all of those things, I may as well do it all myself, because all I'm really doing is typing into a message. I could just type on my calendar and have the same output, right? So how do you go from something that is, and we've talked about this, there's no easy answer to it, obviously, but like, you know, how do you go from something that really is kind of partly useful, partly not, and then people go, well, like, it's just a lot of effort to get the same result as I had before. Why would I do that? Like, that's the real challenge, I think, is how you bridge that gap.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that's why you're seeing a significant proportion of the market not trying to make all these general purpose tools and actually just saying, what's one specific thing that this AI use case can do extremely well, and we can iterate that to make that use case better over time, and let's launch a product for that. Like Fixer AI, right?
Yeah.
Their thing is like, you know, they've branched it, they've marketed it as a AI personal assistant. I think they've done like $20 or $50 million annual recurring revenue. Brilliant model. And like, you get, you know, the wow factor as soon as you subscribe is great, because it suddenly goes through your whole email and drafts an AI reply for all of them. Yeah. Analyzes your tone. They brand that as a AI personal assistant.
Which is not.
It's not, but their thinking is, one of the main use cases of personal assistants is to manage emails.
Okay.
Let's make this thing one of the best thing we can at understanding a person's tone and responding to an email. I know you used it and you said doesn't quite get it right, but you know.
Well, I've got an update on that. So interestingly, it is getting significantly better. Obviously, it's learning, I guess, from me. And so when I've emailed, I got an email from my co-founder, Nick, and when I first got the email from him, like when I first started using it a month ago or 2 months ago, whatever it was, it would respond to him as everyone else. Hi, Nicholas, or something like that. Hope you've had a good day, or something, blah, 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 blah. Now it will reply without even addressing him. So it won't say hi or anything like that. It will literally be like, sounds good, mate. I'll ping that over to you. Yeah. Like literally. Whereas the email underneath that is a client who I've been going back and forth and saying, hi, so-and-so. It will say, hi, so-and-so. Yeah. But like, so it's actually getting significantly better at.
And it's really, really interesting. And I think that's the way it has to go. You know, as far as I see it, all of these different technologies will have to they have to focus in at making the thing that they're really good at good. Yeah. Because until that's nailed as individual points, we're going to struggle to have a system that can, you know, maybe coordinate those technologies or bring the things together to make it multi-purpose in loads and loads of different areas. Because, as I said, it's even, you know, what they're doing there at Fixer involves incredibly hard tech, because you need to have a knowledge base. You need to have a memory store. Remembers how Joe's, the relationship between probably, you know, it might have a tag in its database that says Joe is, you know, Nick, informal, we talk like this, do that. All of those bits, one specific use case, you can imagine how much they're investing into their tech infrastructure. Yeah, 100%. $50 million a year, and they've got funding, I believe. And so just for that one use case, to get it actually right is incredibly hard. And I think that's the issue right now, is that if for one use case it's incredibly hard to get right, something that's general is going to be, you know, 100 times harder. Yeah. Because there's just way more things to consider. Yeah. But I do think that as you know, like we're very, very much at the beginning of the AI revolution. Things are going to be moving, you know, very fast. They already are moving very fast. I do think this kind of context engineering and memory thing is going to be very hard to get right, but there's a lot of companies working on it. And so it's just going to get better and better quicker. It's very early, right?
Absolutely. So we're coming towards the end of the conversation. I want to kind of round off with a few tips that people can take away, but also I want to ask you some, maybe, I don't want to call it rapid fire questions, but so my first question is, like, if you had to name one job that you think could easily be replaced by AI, what do you think is something that could be replaced very easily. People say accounting, but I disagree. I would, because I'm an accountant. The reason I disagree is because I think accounting needs context. I think it needs to know the person. It needs to know the business. It needs to know their goals. And, you know, it actually becomes quite difficult sometimes to, it needs to know that when it pays, for example, my office in DMCC, I pay them rent sometimes. I pay them for coffee sometimes. I pay them for meeting room rental sometimes. I might pay them to host an event. So it's very difficult for an AI to know necessarily why I paid them on that time. Do you know what I mean? If it knows I paid Starbucks and DMCC, and it knows one is rent and one is coffee, fine. So where do you think, as a one industry, you think is going to get hit by AI?
I mean, we're already seeing it a lot, like design. Design, because AI is getting way better at you know, making video and imagery outputs. But right now it's still in the phase where, you know, it's such that actually designers are just using them to make their jobs faster. But I think, like, if you look at, you know, someone who doesn't need a really high quality social media or design, I think AI is kind of capable of doing that now. And we've done that for clients, right? It's you know, but you have to take a structured approach, and that's why our business isn't just AI and automation. We're actual business consultants. So, like, for example, one of the founders we work with, we've automated the back end of their social media marketing. We'll, like, sit them down, ask loads of questions about their business, identify 3 pillars, ask them more questions over a call about that, use all of those transcripts to come up with loads of information, attach that to a research agent that goes out once a week, looks at loads of different things, populates, you know, a month's worth of posts. They come in and approve it, or the titles. Once it's approved, it will then draft the whole post. Then you can marry that up to, you know, I said to somebody the other day, he hasn't quite done this yet, but if you've got 24 photos of yourself and you're posting 3 times a week, that's 2 months worth. No one's going to remember after 2 months that you used that 2 months ago. So actually, personal branding with AI is actually incredibly easy, because as soon as you've got those content pillars, as soon as you've got that research agent, as soon as you've got that ability to make the posts, or to make the titles, then make the posts, once they're approved, marry them up to different images in order, then you just need to attach to a scheduler like Hootsuite or something like that. And you've, again, not 100% replaced a social media manager, but you've replaced 95% of it. And so I think that kind of, like, personal branding, personal branding person within a business is something that you definitely can do. Now, the question about, you said, will that replace an industry? I'm not sure, because I still think that most people won't be bothered to do that. I think it actually creates more opportunity for those working in that industry to service more clients for a cheaper rate.
And that's where we've, you know, that's where we've looked at in a lot of what we're doing, is some of the bits of AI that we're using is not so much to replace our job, it's to make our job more efficient, so we can deliver better for our client. Okay, so lastly then, like, I want to give, like, if a business was listening to this and they're thinking, I have no idea where to start with AI, apart from listen to you, where would you tell them to go? What would you might tell them to do as the first thing to, like, start to understand it?
So there's 2 answers to this. One of the biggest issues that we see within businesses is that they want to use AI more to generate high quality outputs, and they want to use it with their teams. If you're looking for an AI tool like ChatGPT, where your team can use it as a whole and you can learn from each other, see how you're doing it, not have to waste time copy and pasting to go between different tools, like writing on ChatGPT, putting it on Google Docs, sharing the link on a WhatsApp chat to get feedback, then repeating that process again, I would say check out the Mindprint product, because that's exactly why we created it. It's for non-technical small teams, and it's for people that are looking to use AI in the most simple way possible. You can collaborate with your team, like on Slack and Microsoft Teams. You've actually got AI employees embedded in there. We've taken away the whole idea of having to prompt by giving the AI employees skills. So it makes it incredibly, incredibly easy. If you're looking to do it free beta, that would be the first answer to that question. But if you're looking at something more, you know, integrated into your business, that's really going to allow you to increase productivity, reduce massive amounts of time and waste spent within the business, there's really, you know, one primary question and then 2 follow-on questions that you need to ask yourself. What am I doing that has a clear step-by-step process with little variance one time to the next? Identify those things, really deeply think about it. Maybe it's not you, maybe it's your team, whatever. Maybe it's you and your team. Identify those things within your business. Then try and understand which of those things are we doing frequently and which of those things are we doing that take a lot of time. Because then what you found are candidates from the first question that can be automated with AI, quite simply, not an AI agent, an AI automation like we discussed earlier. And then the question is, should I? Well, if you're doing it frequently and it takes a lot of time, absolutely. Because you would save significant amounts of your time.
Yeah, I really like that.
And once you've understood what you should be automating with AI, the next question becomes how.
How?
That's where you can obviously work with a company like us. Or if you've got time, go onto YouTube, check out tutorials on NA10, Zapier, Make.com, Gumloop, and give it yourself a shot. But yeah.
Perfect, James. Thank you so much. We could literally sit here all day and all night chatting about this, but we're not allowed. Our time is up. So for those, obviously we'll link and stuff into, I'm sure, into the beta and all those
Use
sorts of things.
Mindprint AI.
Where can people find you?
LinkedIn, James Augustin. Also TikTok, James Augustin. And YouTube, James Augustin. Jim Augustin on Instagram.
Just to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But most active on LinkedIn. So.
Yeah, nice. James, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.